It's going live again.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a black screen. Excellent connection. Stream settings. Do I need to change anything on this side? I don't think I do. No.
Is it the same link?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's still black, Jim.
Sorry, I can't help you. We had it working.
Whoops! Is it even capturing the audio here?
I have to change headphones and just a second.
Yeah, audio's coming through.
So it is coming through.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, audio's better than nothing. Maybe if I can figure it out while we're going through, great. I got way too many things on this desk. Now I've got corned beef and stuff sitting here on my left. Just adding more to it. Okay, so I'm just going to go with it, and we can figure this out maybe as we go. All of a sudden, just get display that just shows up out of nowhere. Possibly, I don't know. It's just not. It's not working. No, thank you. So we'll just go with it. If we got audio, that's really probably the most important part. So let's roll. Oops, let me get rid of this. Okay, here's the agenda. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. For the record, let's just go down the list here. We'll start with our VP.
Here.
You're here? Okay, how about our secretary?
Secretary's here.
Okay. Jim, you also have proxies.
I have, geez, I wish I would remember. I have Squirrel 50s and Super Nuts.
Okay, fantastic.
Here, Nikki.
Okay, let's go down the list. So, Jerry.
Martin Fives here.
Okay.
IE
chapter. Okay. North 48.
Cliff Slaughterbeck here, CRS 98.
Okay. Or 48 North. Okay, and then we got Jim, Jesse, Antoine.
Roger that. Puget Sound.
Okay, and Patrick.
Patrick's here.
Cool.
South Central.
Okay. So the only one we've got one unaccounted for, and that's Aaron for the Olympic Peninsula chapter. And I think that accounts. Oh, and Gene. Gene is. He said he was going to make it here. He was on the other side of Moses Lake. I think he said he was on his way. We've got him connected. He's hopefully going to join us here in a little bit. So that accounts for everybody. So let's welcome everybody to our March 18th, 2020 board meeting. Couple of ground rules for this, since this is our second go through with this live meeting on Teams. Try to keep things somewhat orderly here. If you want to comment or say something, just pipe up and say you got something you want to say, and I'll give you the floor, just so that we can kind of keep things somewhat orderly as we go through. And we do have a pretty good a packed agenda. Some interesting things we're going to talk about here tonight. So we'll just kind of get right into it. As for the folks over in the YouTube channel that are watching or again, in this case, listening, since we don't have the video feed going, we have we have Jim, our secretary, monitoring any questions or comments that come through the chat. There'll be a point at the end of the meeting here where we'll have a comment section for members, and Jim will take those questions and pose them to the board. I asked that if anybody in the chat on YouTube has a question, to phrase it so that Jim can find it. What you might be able to do is just do like a hashtag and then just say, question or something like that. Jim can look for those in our chat and be able to pose that to the entire board, and we'll be able to respond, and you'll be able to hear our response.
Closed. Crap.
I've got the chat open. So
Oh, you do? I had it open too, but then it says disabled for the stream.
okay, I've got it open. There's actually some news right now just regarding. It sounds like Seebeck tribe. Lori is trying to join, but she's have problems. You might check and see if she's available.
Okay.
I told her to start up Teams, and then she also said that Aaron is coming as well. So
Oh,
Where do
awesome. So we,
Where do you find the chat, guys?
if you just have to start up the live YouTube stream, and it would be off on the side of it. So
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm gonna minimize this then.
okay. Well, I mean, we can give it a little bit more if they're jumping on. If not, I think we can just kind of move forward. So the next thing I have is the approval of the January meeting minutes. I think, Jim, you just did a quick little synopsis since that was our first live. So if everybody's taking a look at that, if we got any questions on that.
We're not on YouTube here.
The Seebeck tribe looks like they're in now. Hi, Aaron.
Lori should be.
Lori. Yeah, sorry.
So you got Lori?
Yeah, I'm looking at Aaron's, watching it ring her phone, and nothing's happening. So she's not ready yet.
Okay. But Lori's on board?
Says she's connected. She's the S.
Yep.
Is your speakers?
Okay.
you go.
Yep.
I hear it.
Good. Lori, was just hard to hear you. You might need to speak up or something like that. So.
Okay, great. So we got our future secretary on board here, which is great. So thanks, Lori, for joining us here. So we were at the point where we're talking about the January board meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comments on that? We can just go right into the vote.
Well, it might help just to speak.
What was that, Lori?
Hey, Nikki. I'm gonna take this off real quick.
We could barely hear you out there, Lori, but that's okay. We're glad you're here. That's all that matters. Okay, so if there's no comments on the meetings, let's go ahead. If somebody wants to, go ahead and put that to a vote.
So moved.
Middle shelf, left-hand side.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, it sounds like everybody voted that in. Jesse, did you comment? I didn't know if you waited or not.
Aye, yes.
All right. Everybody's on that? Awesome. Okay, we'll go ahead and adopt those meetings.
I got it.
Can people mute their mics if they're not going to talk?
Yeah. So, Antoine, you're making a lot of background noise. If you're not actually doing it, can you mute your mic when you're not talking intentionally?
Background noise.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the treasurer report. Again, unfortunately, our new treasurer, Annette, cannot be here at this time because of Pete's medical issues that are going on right now. She did submit a report kind of last minute. I don't think we really want to get too much into detail on that, or she may be joining us later on too. That's hanging out there.
Oh my God.
But if she doesn't, that's fine. If anybody has any questions on the report, we can certainly ping that back to her and email her after the meeting. But is there any comments on that as it sits right now? Okay. Moving right along then. Let's talk about the membership report. Any comments on
Oh
that
my
one?
God.
What, Lori? here. Okay, anything on the membership?
I guess, Chris, I have a question. This is Jesse.
Yeah, go ahead. Hey, Jim.
Moving forward, what is the expectation of the membership report? I pulled the chart that just shows numbers of memberships per month. Do we need it itemized per month? Is that what the treasurer does? Is that what you're doing? What's the plan going forward with that?
Yeah, I mean, historically, the membership has really been falling more on the VP, but the roles have been kind of sort of moved around over the years. Certainly, when Broncos fan for life, was she was still around, Chandra was still doing it. It made sense for her to do both, because if you think about it, they're really tied together. The treasurer and the membership kind of connect. So historically, that's not how it has always been. It has been the VP that does it, and it's a matter of just going in and running reports and stuff, letting the chapters know. I think the chapter rep should know, what their new memberships are, what memberships have lapsed. Those kind of things, and then what their current count is. I think that's probably the most important of all of it, is what is your current membership? Because ultimately we want to know that. They have to make the minimum number of members to be considered an active, chapter. So those are the key things, and you can just run those reports, I think, right off of the website.
And those are done monthly instead of bi-monthly?
Be done if you've messed around much with the reporting on our website. You can there's a couple of different parameters you can set on that. You can do it for like a year, or there's even an ad hoc section where you can add from this date range to that date range. So you can sort of tailor-made it however you want to do it. I think, if we're doing it for the meetings, we should just set the membership for, okay, this is from this date to right up to the meeting, this is what it is. If you want to do a year comparison, this is at this time last year, this is how many members you had, this is where you are as it compares to this year, so that again reps can see what the trend is with their membership. Is it going down, or and if that's the case, then they need to go out and drum up more membership by having a focus on certain areas if they want to do that. So that'd be a nice little tool to have, is to do the year-to-year comparison, March 2019 to March 2020. So, I mean, whatever tools I think we can give the reps as membership goes, that's really the way to go, I think.
Okay.
So they can help.
Yeah. Chapter reps, do you have any other requests for the membership report?
I think it would be nice to have one going from meeting to meeting. I know there's been several times I've seen even our members are in the wrong chapters.
Nice. So then if we did it that way, it would offer an opportunity for quality control.
Right. And cleanup. Correct.
Yeah.
Well, I renewed my membership yesterday, and I noticed something.
I did not get that email.
Okay. The option for the chapters doesn't come when you order it. And maybe that might be something you might want to consider. It actually comes, I think it comes in your profile. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, well then, people don't usually work or edit their profiles. Shouldn't that come when you actually click on basic or premium membership as maybe a drop-down tab?
That would be nice.
Well, there you go.
I don't know if our website offers that, but we can certainly send that to the webmaster as a request.
Yeah.
I think that might be one of the only ways that you can actually specify the chapter, unless you want to maybe build multiple cells for choice of chapter.
Okay.
Well, and you know the other thing too, and I've messed around. I've gone into the membership profile on the website and have looked at stuff in there, and I almost think when people are signing up or renewing, that some of those boxes for membership, you should be required to put something in some of those. So like chapter affiliation, if you leave it blank, then it goes out into la la land and it doesn't get assigned to any one chapter. So I think from that standpoint, you should, they're, like you said, a drop down box or something that requires you to pick which one it is. And I think by default, we just go, okay, well, this person lives here, so they would be in this chapter. And that's great for most people, but for out-of-state folks, for instance, they don't really have an option. It's just kind of, you're out there somewhere. So, so there's, I think there should be some sections in there when you sign up or renew that you're required to review your profile. That would be the other thing. Look at your profile on our website. Do you need to change something? Have you moved? We're going to be sending that name badge to you. If you've moved and you didn't bother to update your profile, well, guess what? That name badge is going to an old address. So
I don't
I'd be
think you can do that. I think while you guys figure out what the fix will be on this, I think somebody, and I'm sorry, Jesse, but I think it's going to have to be the VP. If the VP is going to do membership, just go in there and see if there are, kind of filter it out to see if there are any that haven't really been any of the new profiles that haven't been spoken for as far as the chapter is concerned, and then place them in a chapter. If you have to boost up the Cascadians with somebody in Maryland.
No, I'm not gonna just throw somebody into a chapter unless they specifically request it. I think that's important, but I do think quality control is important. But I'll check with Jim and work with him to see what rails the website has and what capabilities it has, and make something that makes sense for everybody.
Yeah, because ultimately, if we want these really wonderful membership reports, it's only going to be as good as what's being inputted when the members are either signing up for the first time or renewing. So if they don't bother to change anything and the old stuff is still in there, then someone's got to go through and data check all of that documentation. That is going to be extremely time consuming. So I'm just thinking, if there's a way where we could catch it at the source, when that person is renewing, when a member is renewing or signing up, at that point they have control over their own data and their demographics. They should be required to, even if it's a little box that says, has anything changed as it sits today? This is what we have for your profile. Is everything the same? Check the box, yes, it's fine, and then hit enter, boom.
Yep.
Renew.
That's just. And like I said, I'll work with Jim. I didn't mean to derail us off into, I'll work with Jim to see what our website offers, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think that will help. Membership certainly going forward. Looks like Erin is joining here.
She's calling me. Was she calling the whole group?
Here, let me.
It's unclear.
If I add her.
I don't think she's in the right group.
We can call her.
All right, cool. I'll hang up on her then. Huh. Somebody disappeared.
There we go. Okay. Erin just called me and I'm joining her in right now. There she is.
Okay. I think Chris might be on hold.
Yeah, Chris jumped on the other call too. He needs to come back in and join the chat.
He needs to join. He needs to get off the other call and do that. So
Yeah.
So, just real quick, because we're all kind of here in blue. I tried to log in on my laptop, and I don't know, since I had to log in on my phone, and I was trying to log in on my phone, and it wouldn't let me. So I logged into my laptop, and then it picked up on my phone. But now I'm logged into my laptop. Is there any way to change the call over to the laptop?
Well, let me see what address we have for you here. Oh, shoot. Okay. Okay. Aaron Comstock, Blue Canoe. I think if you hang up and then turn the Teams off on your phone, then I'll call you back and it should go to your laptop.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm only seeing one account for you. Okay. Give her a minute. Somebody want to yell at Chris.
you're back. Okay.
Yeah. You're on president now? Okay. I'm calling her.
She was on her phone. We were trying to get her on her laptop, which is her preferred way of doing it there.
Yeah. That's to join. There we go. Calling again. I know, speaking of the profiles, there's people in there that don't have addresses listed, like Anton. You don't have your address in there.
I do.
No, you don't.
In
Yeah.
the what?
In your user profile.
No, okay. What platform are you talking about?
WSGA Online.
I did it yesterday.
I know. I sent you the card out yesterday, but there's no address listed on the membership page.
I
didn't get an email saying that you purchased a membership, and I normally do. So it's possible that it just didn't. It kicked you out, or something didn't complete or submit or something.
If you guys don't want me around, it doesn't matter. I can join. Chandra's got a new geocaching association she's putting together, so I think if she wants to, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Aaron, are you connected?
Yeah, but it would only ring on my phone.
Okay.
So
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, but last time I remember I was having a really hard time where it wasn't, like, it kept bogging down, then it'd freeze, and I'd have to relog back in and all that good stuff. So
Yeah, I don't really want anybody knowing where I live. I mean, oh, that's for you. Okay, cool. Yeah,
Well, I have your address because it came on the order, but it didn't get put into your profile. So, like, when people type their addresses in on their orders, they do not populate the profiles.
Well, there's no place to put your address.
Well, I've got your address from your order.
Right, but so how do you want me to put it into my profile if there's no place for it?
There is a place for it in the extended profile part of your user. I don't know. I'm looking at it from the secretary level, not the user level. There's somebody just popped up. Who was that?
Oh, I see.
No,
There.
I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah, it's been a crazy day. Sorry.
Hey, Gene. Huh. Because I just invited you. Let me see where you are here. Huh. Asked to join. Should be getting a request to join now. It's saying you're unavailable. Are you still logged into Teams or?
Me?
No, he's on the phone with Gene.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me? It's Seabeck Tribe.
Yes, we can, Lori.
Okay, I'm gonna mute now. I found the mute
Yes.
button.
Yes.
There you go, Jim. All done. Classic.
Nothing other than what was in my report. We had 2 events yesterday, despite all the madness, and
Okay, hang up. Okay.
so.
No, South Central, we have nothing going on. We had one of our members had an event planned for Pi Day that ended up being canceled after HQ made their announcement about the events. Otherwise, there's nothing else planned at this point except for the GeoCoin event coming up. Yep, we're still going to be moving forward, business as usual. Just kind of play it by ear and see how things go. Right. Yeah, that was the last week of June. Right. I will.
Yeah, no. So I was talking with Issaquah Parks and Recs up until Thursday of last week about having a CETO at Confluence, and we were going to meet yesterday, and they completely canceled out on nothing. They don't want to see groups at all. I have ideas for potential events in the future, and I'll do them under my own profile, but I'm not necessarily sure if they're in accordance with Groundspeak, and if they're not, I would like them to change their rules a little bit for this time. I do know that we had a couple of member events and non-member events, just regular Puget Sound events, that are being canceled right now. So, yeah.
So we So,
Chris, we can't see you.
We
Chris,
can't
your
see you.
video isn't working. No
You're right.
video.
Great.
Your video's not working, Chris.
No,
You're on your
you're on
WSGA
president.
thing. That's the one that doesn't have your video up.
You're in the wrong account.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Nope.
No.
Maybe dance in the screen. Let it see that you're there.
It
I
should
can-
just work if he's on there.
There
I'm
you go.
calling you
Chris,
back
this is
on
what
your
you're
other
trying to
account. I'm
Chris,
calling
this
you
is what
on
you're
your.
trying to show.
Oh.
No.
Go back to your other computer. I'm calling you on it. No response.
Jesse, is Julie still doing her event at UW this week?
I'm sorry.
Duma, she's
It's she's seeing if what the coffee shop decides. She's not at the U. She's at a coffee shop.
Did you guys see geocaching posting their own messages on most of these?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I had an event on Saturday and they posted on mine and we had it anyway.
So, to be clear, if the coffee shop doesn't have outdoor space, the coffee shop will be shut down. So,
Okay.
Yeah. She's trying to figure out if she can go in and people can get coffee, and if so, then she'll align the timing of the event with that. If not, then they're just gonna have it at Green Lake outside the coffee shop in the park. That's her today plan anyway. Who knows about tomorrow?
You know, it's so funny because this hobby is literally the best thing for this isolation as far as activity is concerned, at least on my mind, you know, and we can't even get Groundspeak to allow us to do like a geocache finding event because it's part of their no rule or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
to be clear, this has nothing to do with Groundspeak. This is a recommendation from the CDC. So let's keep it away from HQ. So
No, I'm not saying it like that. I meant to say like if there's a rule that states that you can't set up an event for geocaching, you know, to go out and find a geocache.
Right. It has to be separate from the sole purpose of the event. Cannot be just to go find a geocache. That can be
That
done
is-
afterwards.
Correct.
But it cannot be the reason for the event.
Right.
Okay. I am back.
There you are.
There's Chris.
As I unplug the power cord here, that would not be something. Okay. Just kind of patching this together as we go here. Yay. Okay. So this is the little gizmo, the little ball that Kathy was she was handing that out at her event, her Friday the 13th event. It was pretty hilarious. Throwing them around. But anyway, she had the event. So I thought that was kind of cool. Okay, well, I'm going to move along here. Chapter reports. Yes, we got to finish that. So Cliff, what's going on up in the northern reaches?
So we had a Leap Day celebration event, which on the 29th, which I believe, according to historical records, was the first ever WSGA event ever held in Island County, which was kind of like Yay! So
Awesome.
if I could
Really?
get that. Yeah, it's Island County's and San Juan's never had a WSGA event. Obviously, there have been events there, but none from the WSGA. So, at least certainly nothing from 48 North, and I don't think there's been a one from somebody else. So, anyway, that was kind of fun. Even though it was only 6 of us that were there, it was still fun. Then we have the Big Blue Switch kickoff event on the, May 2nd, which is scheduled for Mount Vernon. It's outdoors, so we're not going to lose our site. The only question will be, again, whether or not from a health perspective we can have that site, or if we're going to end up with something that's going to be shut down. No reason to, change the plans yet, so I'm going to leave it going until I'm told I can't. So there are a lot of events going on right now. TW Lair has been trying to hold this March Madness thing up in Bellingham, so she's got something like 16 events through the rest of the month. So
wow.
She is holding them. She did her one today, and they're outside.
Yeah. So.
That's great. More power to her. And I think that's, yeah, I just got a text from Annette about the audio only, which I'll ping her back on that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's great that she's doing the outdoor events. And, personally, I don't know why we couldn't continue doing those kind of things. I think finding a restaurant or any public room like in a library or something might be tall order these days. But
well, it's completely that can't happen. So
they're closed.
We're done.
There's
we're
no
done.
chance.
And
So-
to be clear, if we end up with something like a shelter-in-place order like what they're doing in San Francisco, it's not clear whether or not these will be shut down as well. So we should enjoy them while we can. So
I agree. Okay, Aaron, do you have anything out in the OP you want to add?
No, not
Nothing going
right
on there?
offhand. We're trying to lay low because I've got that pneumonia I've had for a couple of years. So, yeah, it's all about death and fearing that stuff,
Yeah, exactly. If you've got compromised immune system, you probably don't want to be out around people, even if it's in a park or some other outdoor type of venue. So that makes sense. Okay, we're going to move on to the Parks Liaison report. I doubt Annette had much of anything to report at this point. So I will just kind of go right on to outreach. I had one outreach event that was at a school just within walking distance of my house. We have a WSGA member by the name of Joe McPherson. He is a school counselor here in the Renton School District at Cascade. And every year he's invited us to come over during their science and tech night and do a presentation and show the kids some geocaching stuff. I've done it every year here for the last, 3 years or so, 4 years. It was scheduled for the 12th of March and it got canceled because basically the school district was canceling all evening activities, and of course they're now closed. So basically that is a done deal. It's not postponed. It is canceled. So that was really all I had for the outreach. There was going to be an event. Now it didn't happen. So that was that. Merchandise.
And we have the one in September.
Yeah, that one in September. That's right. In Issaquah. At Sammamish there. Whether or not that's going to happen, hopefully it will. It's September.
So when you guys do outreach, does that mean you just go into the community and you inform people about the?
Usually, Aaron, what happens is we'll get a request. We'll get an email off of our website, and it could come from various sources. We've had them from, usually it's private groups. Sometimes like the Girl Scouts, a troop will contact us. We've had, I did a couple of teen library events where teen librarians would contact us to have us come in during their summer programs and have us come in and talk to the kids about caching. I actually did 2 of those, one for the Tacoma library system and one for Puyallup, and that was a lot of fun. We did kind of an interactive sort of thing. We did sort of a presentation, and then we did an outdoor thing where I hid some caches around the library and gave them printouts and let them use GPS units to go and find them. So that was one we've done. I've gone into schools, Bear Creek School up there in Redmond. I did a class there, and that's a private school. So they kind of and the parks, what Jesse was talking about, that's the state parks asking us to come in. So it comes from various places and various entities. So it's actually kind of fun. I enjoy doing that. So if you have, I mean, we could even do one thing I know Deb was really getting into was reaching out to various police departments and coming in because they'll have a pre shift meeting where the shift commander will come on and they will debrief the officers before they go out on their shifts. One of the suggestions, I think she said they do this down in Oregon. Geo Oregon does this, where they will go in and teach the cops a little bit about geocaching, tell them what it is, so they know that they see a bunch of people, hanging around a parking lot with their phones and GPS units, that they know what's going on. So it's kind of a cool way to reach out to the police officers in various cities and towns to let them know what's going on. I think that would be a fun thing to do. To go and just do a 15-20 minute talk to the officers, and a lot of them probably know, but there's a good chunk that probably don't. So we can just kind of reach out to them and give them a quick rundown on what geocaching is, so that they don't get suspicious when they see a group of people walking around doing this at 8 in the morning. So that's outreach. That's what we do. And it can happen anywhere. Jerry's done some for us out in IE, so it can be anywhere. So that's what it is.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Sorry for interrupting.
No, I'm glad you asked that question. Actually, it's a great question. Okay, so that's nothing else on outreach. We can jump into merchandise. I did send. I've kind of been toying around with reports. We were talking about membership reports a little bit. There's also reporting for merchandising. So I've been kind of toying with that. And so I've did a little bit different report for that.
I've done it for the Boy Scouts.
What was that, Lori? Yep. I thought I heard Lori there. Okay. Anyway, on merchandise, so I've been fooling around with the reporting on our website and have come up with a pretty good little formula that I can use for running reports that gives us a little idea of what's selling, what's not, where our income's coming, that kind of thing. So I'll do that for every meeting going forward and submit that on a nifty little spreadsheet.
I've reached out and done it for Boy Scouts before.
Oh yeah, right. That's right. You've done that too. I forgot, Lori. You've done some stuff out there too. You've borrowed the club GPS units and have done some pretty cool stuff. So yeah, the scouts are frequent requests for that, and obviously they have their badges and stuff for geocaching. So it makes sense that they contact us and try to learn more about geocaching.
Hey, Chris, that you're mentioning of scouts, that made me just remember something that I had forgotten, which is that we actually had an Eagle Scout project in 48 North that was completed. That was to create a new a Caching the Eagle project, and that is now live up in Linden. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, if you go up there, there's a new Cache the Eagle project. It's all live. All 12 caches are up and running. So.
Oh, fantastic! They did 12. That's outstanding. Yeah. Well, now I have to put that on my list. I know going into Canada might be a little bit of a problem right now, but
they're not on this side of the border. You can do it on this side. So
yeah, there you go. I don't have to go up there. Awesome. Well, thanks. That's great info. Okay, so with that, that kind of puts us at social media, and Jesse's at the bat. Jesse, we're not hearing you. At least I'm not.
Nope, she's got her muted.
Oh, you're muted.
I'm unmuted now.
There you
The,
are.
any questions from the report, social media related?
I did see. I like that you got the. I know you put the elections up there, which was great. I mean, we didn't have any contested races, so it's kind of more for your information kind of thing. But that was nice. And we'll just do for every meeting. We want to definitely do our YouTube thing, and I will figure this thing out with the video piece. I don't know what happened there, but we'll get that figured out.
Well, I posted earlier today that we would be live on YouTube and posted the link. I posted on Instagram just now that we were doing this. I do appreciate it when the chapters share the posts that the main page does. I'll have access to most of the chapter pages, so I'm also just happy to do that for you. I don't want to step on your toes, which is why I don't normally do it. But if you want me to do it, I'm more than happy to.
You don't have access to our Facebook or Instagram pages, or even geocaching.com pages.
I'm sorry, Antoine. I didn't get all of that.
You don't have access to what platforms?
I'm saying I do have access to most of our Facebook pages, and so I'm happy to share the posts on the main page if you want, but I don't normally do that just because I don't want to step on the toes of the chapter reps.
You're welcome to step on my toes.
Just don't do it with spike shoes. There you go.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Tread lightly. Okay, well, anything else for Jesse on social media? All right. Well, that takes us to the old business section of our agenda. So I got a couple of things. Obviously, we kind of touched a little bit on the elections. And Jesse's already mentioned a little bit about it. It is up on our Facebook page. Again, there's no surprises. There were no contested elections. So if you ran, you're in the position. Congratulations. You're going to continue on this board. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome both Lori as our new secretary, Seebeck Tribe, and somebody who most of you will probably know, Chris Umfenauer, Chris of the Northwest, somewhat famous local geocacher, if you're at all familiar with the Caching in the Northwest podcast. Mr. Umfenauer is going to take over as the Puget Sound rep starting April 1st. So congratulations to both of you, and welcome to the group.
That reminds me that I can get I can give Chris permissions through the Puget Sound social media stuff. Got it written down.
So we'll need to make sure that they get access to the WSGA geo accounts, particularly for the Puget Sound, of course. The secretary doesn't really have one, but chapter reps do. So
Antoine, can you get that list over to Chris Umfenauer?
Yeah, I can do it either tonight or tomorrow morning. We'll have it taken care of. Cool. Chris, also, maybe we should meet or at least contact each other. I have 2 bins here for you.
Yes, I was going to get to that. All the gear needs to do the transfer.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, thank you, Chris, for running for this. Appreciate it.
Not a problem.
It has been a lot of fun, but I'm preparing for a baby in 19 days with COVID-19, and I'm not super comfortable right now. So there's no way I would have been able to do it. No way.
Yeah. I completely understand. Do you want me to come to you rather than?
No, I mean, I drive. I can drive. I mean, I might have one eye, but I still can drive. I will ask Chris at some point about outreach because I do feel like outreach. Nikki has allowed me to do outreach. She said that she's probably going to want to boot me out of the house at some point during the next couple of months. So.
Awesome. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I'll just kind of hang on to it for now, but it's not really active at this point. So, yeah, by all means, we can make that change. Okay. Well, great. Again, thank you all, and also I want to thank those that are departing. So, Mr. T's departing as our secretary. Here in a few days. And then, of course, Antoine, again, thank you for jumping in and taking over the Puget Sound rep position when Rob left. So I do appreciate that. And yeah, we'll be around. We'll be around if you want to step into the outreach position. That would be fine with me.
I'll take it.
Okay. All right. If nothing else on the elections, now we're getting into a real interesting section here, the APE event.
Yeah.
Event.
So I've been in contact with our venue for a long time, which is the Snoqualmie Ski Lodge, and she has a lot of other pressing events that take up a lot of her time. I know Cliff gave you all an update last meeting, and part of that feedback that he brought last meeting was that you'd like more updates. And so I've been trying to send some of those just kind of as relevant things come up. And I'll continue to do so. And since the last meeting, Mark Clemens, everywhere, who is also on our planning team, went up there and met with her and did a face-to-face, which was great, and saw some places and talked about details. From then, we got a little bit more information from her, but then, of course, this pressing pandemic has come and taken a lot of her attention, and they have closed. They're all working from home, and they are working on how to problem solve that situation. And all of the directors are out. She said the directors return back in. They're all doing a check-in meeting at some point next week. She said she's going to bring up our event at that point, but their priorities are on the more immediate needs of the business. And I told her that I do hope that they consider our event to be a revenue boost in a time that they could really use a revenue boost. But they are, as is every other organization that serves the public, working through this pandemic. And we're going to go through that. In terms of HQ, I did reach out to them. They have a every other week meeting about their own 2020 celebration event. And I reached out to them and said, do you all have a go, no go date, or, you know, what are your thoughts? And they just said that they're going to keep their eyes on the state's recommendations, the public health recommendations, the things that the governor says and assorted mandates, and then apply accordingly. And will likely be conservative, just like most places are, out of using that phrase, it is with an abundance of caution and that sort of thing. But no decisions have been made. So at this point, the team is still tentatively planning, because I mean, we have been talking about swag and talking about what all these sorts of things are, so that when we do get the green light from the venue, we can move forward and do so speedily. But of course, we're in the global holding pattern. Yeah. So that's the most current updates. Any questions or thoughts or anything, Cliff, anything I missed that's important?
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing is I would say that Mark has come up with some really cool designs for some of the kind of the theme. It's very steampunkish. It's really nifty stuff that he's come up with. He's been working with Oak Coins, I believe, for looking at some preliminary designs for a coin. it's absolutely fabulous. It's going to be really cool with kind of some moving gears and parts and things like that. The real question is going to come down to, at some point, we're going to have to pull the trigger. And at that point, we'll have to spend some money. And then it's a question of, okay, if we have to pull out, that's the one risk factor we'd be there where if we end up canceling, we'd have a whole bunch of coins that we may not be able to do anything with until, maybe if HQ postpones their event for a year, we'll do the same or something. But that's something I think we'd want to work with HQ on, because they do the same thing, right? So anyway, we don't, and I don't know, and Chris, maybe you have more information about what the Geo Woodstock group is planning than we would do, and what they're willing to share amongst the rest of the world. But I don't know what their thoughts are, or if you're in a position that you're willing to share.
Which Chris are you referring to?
I was referring to you, since you're Chris Humphenauer, to be specific.
Okay.
So.
I haven't heard a thing. They're aware of it. That we're as far as I know, they're hoping that by August everything has returned to normal.
Yeah.
But it's just too early to make any calls at this point.
Yeah. And I think we have to plan that way for all of us, right? Because if you stop planning, then you're really going to be behind the 8 ball if things do go well. But that's there is always the possibility that all of these events could get canceled. I mean, right now, Canada's borders are shut down, so nobody could fly there anyway. So,
one tip: if you're looking to make a coin, they're all made in China. The earlier you get it in, you're going to have a huge lead time. It's going to be longer than normal. So,
yeah, Everywhere is well aware of it. I mean,
I'm sure he is. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big concern for us for sure. So.
Yeah, that's you're right about the point of no return. I mean, and I'm sure HQ's got this. They've got some magic date circled on their calendar somewhere, where they need to pull the ripcord and jump. And I definitely think for us, they can maybe afford to lose some, deposit money and whatever else. For us, I don't know that we have the luxury of doing that as a nonprofit.
Right.
So, I was going to save that item for down to the COVID-19 section of our agenda, but since we are talking the APE event and it is our biggest expenditure as well as the biggest moneymaker, I mean, we need to make this our future decisions on what we want to do with this event we got to make these educated decisions very well thought out. And so I'm not thinking of knee-jerk reaction and going, well, we should just cancel it. But at the same time, I think we need to have a date on our calendar and decide that this is the date. This is a go or no go date. Now, with the event being outside of King County, because technically it is, I think that's Kittitas County up there, I believe, if I got my counties right.
Correct.
That might be a little different scenario. King County, of course, is camped down to 10. What is it? I think they said no events whatsoever, unless you follow their guidelines, which I don't know of too many people are going to be willing to follow those 4 or 5 bullet points for holding an event. For one thing, I think they're banning people over a certain age to attend public events. I don't know that we want to do that. So as King County goes, again, I'm jumping ahead here and I didn't want to do this, but anyway, as King County goes, I think we ought to just not have any geocaching events that are WSGA related in King County. If somebody wants to hold them on their own, go for it. But I'm a little nervous about having our name attached to some event that somebody at 65, goes to our event and gets sick. Oh, thank you. Social distance summary. Thank you.
In case you need to know.
That is, we should make a placard of that and laminate it. But that's King County. Kittitas County, that's a less populated, more rural county. So maybe, things will be a little lax. But even if we followed the whatever, 50. I can't even keep track of what it is. Isn't it 10 now?
Well, that's the issue, is that it changes every day.
Yeah.
And so right now, yes, in King County, that is no more than 10. But 48 hours ago, it was 250. So I think it's important to just keep our finger on the pulse of what the changes are and adhere to whatever it is the public health advisories are. And
we just need to make a decision as a board, and that's definitely going to be a vote. We are going to vote on this as a unit, and decide if we're going to pull the plug. And preferably, I'd like to do it before we start kicking money out for the venue and stuff, because unless they're willing to give us that money back, if we have to cancel it because of there's a crackdown or something changes or heck, if they sequester all of us in our houses, which they could do, and I keep waiting for that word to come down, then we're not going to be able to hold this thing. And really HQ wouldn't be able to do theirs either, for that matter. So it like you said, this is a fluid situation. But I think at the same time, if things stay the way they are and nothing changes, and we're getting into June and July, I think that's sort of our date on the calendar. Somewhere in that zone, we need to make that decision, whether to go forward or not. And if HQ pulls the plug before then, I really think that would be the smoke signal that we're going to get. If HQ says, no go, we're pulling it, we're going to postpone it until 2021 or whatever they do, then I think that's our sign to pretty much pull the plug on ours too. There's no sense in holding it at that point.
I completely agree.
Yeah. We should shadow HQ.
Well, for sure. Just for the record, currently Kittitas County has 4 cases. So.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
Currently
it's like 22
and it's also
cases.
might be even up to the venue, because even if HQ goes and we decide as a board that we're good, and then the venue says we're just not holding events, we're not going to host the responsibility, because if we host the event on their property, then they are liable. And they are already very concerned about that, just in general, just even before all of this. They're very concerned about what activities that we're going to be doing and stuff, since they would hold the liability on that. We'd get some insurance too, but that's something that's on the top of their mind. And some of it, a lot of it is gonna change. I don't know if we can have a secure go, no go date because of all of the different inputs that come into that. Because even if we say we're a go, the venue again could still say, you know what, we're just cutting it at the knees. And even if they say, anyway, so lots and lots and lots of scenarios, lots of what ifs. I spend a lot of my time, even in my volunteer brain and my work brain, going through all of the what if scenarios that we could possibly find ourselves in. So I think it's really easy to do that. So I don't think we should take up too much more of our meeting time doing it, just because it could go on for infinity.
That's true. That's true. So, but I think we just need to listen to the signs and the cues coming from various outsources, whether it be HQ or public health or the governor's office or wherever. But we need to listen to that and make decisions going forward. Hopefully, what I really would love them to do, and I know they're never going to do it. In fact, I was even considering contacting King County and trying to get somebody over there on the phone and get some sort of idea as to when they thought that they would lift the bans on public events. But I seriously doubt that those people even have a clue, because that would help us in trying to plan things just going forward. Because we know if King County says, yeah, we're expecting things to simmer down by July 1st. Okay, great. If that's going to simmer down in King County, then which is one of the more populous counties in the state, then I think we're going to be fine with Kittitas. But I doubt that I can get anybody that would go on the record and say, yeah, we're going to be good to go by 7/1.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is nobody knows, right? So nobody's going to be
no playbooks.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to muddle through it. It's just a dicey sort of time on so many different levels.
Yeah.
Not just, for us and our little organization, that's for sure. So anyway, so did Avor say when he would hear back from this contact after she met with her board of
Oh, yeah.
directors?
So I've been in contact with her a couple of times since he met with her. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we can definitely, talk about it some more at the next meeting. Does anybody else, any of the reps, anybody have anything they want to ask Jesse about this? Okay.
Hold on, I had to unmute. Sorry.
Okay.
I have a question, Jesse, if you don't mind. So I was kind of thinking in my head. Oh, man, it's one of those what ifs. Okay, so I'm sorry, but it's just very poignant. So let's say what if Groundspeak says, okay, let's go, and then Alpental says no. Do you have a backup location?
It would depend on a whole bunch of other things. Let's say in your what if scenario, HQ says yes, the Snoqualmie Ski Lodge says no, and there are travel bans, so that really we're only looking at local folks. Well, then we're going back to Hayek because they can handle 3,000 or less. And if it's only local people, like a regular old APE event, or something it's like you said, it's a what if. Then that's a possibility. The reason why we're not at our old place is the expected numbers. But if we're at lower than expected numbers or previous historical numbers, well, then that's a different scenario.
So in a sense, I would say, and I hate to say it like this, based on our difficulty with the location you guys have really wanted for this year and what's going on, it's kind of it's probably better that we didn't put a deposit on something.
Well, we had always planned to put in, well, always since January, to put in a rental agreement. If we needed to cancel due to public health reasons, then we would have our deposit back. We are not even at the point yet of having a rental agreement with them yet, so we don't have that in writing, but we were planning on not giving them any money until we had that in writing. Yeah, and I'll say one more thought on that is what's really important to me and some of the things that we were doing in the summer, late summer, early fall, was looking at really creative locations. To me, the apex of this event is the celebration of the ape cache, and so having it anywhere other than near the ape cache would not be true to the intent of the event. So even having it even in Lake Sammamish, where they couldn't hold our numbers, but Lake Sammamish is just too far away from it would just impact the integrity of the event too severely. And so in that case, it feels like it would be better to not have it at all if we were, instead of having it in downtown Seattle or something like that. But
I'm gonna quickly mention the two locations I was thinking about. I know I can hear that.
So the Oscar music, is that the move along music?
Real quick, I'm just going through these two locations. Your Washington State has a airstrip along I-90 going up towards that the pass, and then you also have the Washington State Firefighters Academy.
Yeah, I know those places. You're talking about. Bandera is the a little airport strip. It's not really, you can't even call it an airport because it's not. It's just a grass runway that runs parallel to I-90 there before the pass. It's kind of, I want to say it's before the Denny Creek exit. The problem with that area is parking, or the lack thereof. Even for a super ape event that we're talking about, even just a standard one would be could be an issue with parking just in general. So I don't know how that would necessarily work. And then the firefighters one, I know that place too. I'm not sure what the parking is like up there. I think it's pretty good sized place, but again, it's a state or a government facility. Who knows if they'd even let us use that. If they're shut down like everybody else seems to be these days, we may not even be able to use that one. But yeah, I think the state parks would be the way to go back to Iron Horse and go like we have in the past. The only question I think I'd have if we ended up doing that is, we usually set that up way in advance with them in terms of getting permits and all that sort of thing, the porta potties and all of that. We would have to be able to arrange that in very short order. If we pulled the plug in June, for instance, or July, that's really cutting it close to try to switch gears and move everything, down the road to the parking lot there at Iron Horse.
I guess the one thing
I've been in contact with the state, so they know that we're planning an event and it'll be different than in the past. So if theoretically in that scenario, of moving it back in a short order, they would at least be aware of us having this event and having this need to have a space. Not saying it would be easy, but
so it's not like they haven't seen us there before, so they're aware that this is. One other thing that
an email from me like, not her again.
I was going to say, one other thing that I thought we should mention that we had put out on the there's a Facebook page for all the people who are coming to the Northwest for the 2020 events. And so Jesse put out a survey to try and get some responses to see what people were interested in. And we did get some pretty good response back from that. Unfortunately, it turns out we can only look at the first 40 without paying some money, which we didn't do anything look at the first 40, but that's still informative. The thing that was most interesting to me was that of that first 40, I think we got about a third of the people who said that they were interested not so much in just going to the event, but they were interested in hiking up to GCD. So there was a substantial number of people who, if you're only going to be able to do one or the other, they might choose GCD over APE because maybe they've already done APE. In that case, be able to do that. Now, if we do have a large event, there's no way that parking lot can hold that many people. So that's one of the things we're going to have to do is, work on handling bus service up to be able to do that. So anyway, that's also part of the planning that we're working on to be able to do that. If we do have the event, I think that's something we will have to do. So.
Yeah, that's a great. I know in years past we would have somebody host, sort of a hike up to GCD. I think we've done that. I don't know if we've ever really done it on an official sort of channel. I know it's mentioned on our event page over the years, but for something like that would be an interesting thing. If there's that many people that really want to do that hike, and I understand why they do because of the age of that cache. People are already there. You're a few miles away from where that trailhead is. Kind of makes sense to maybe have some sort of formalized, group hike up there and back. It's a beautiful hike. The views up there are just phenomenal. I think that's a great idea.
Well, the thing is, for the numbers that we're talking about here, again, we were planning on somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 people, and if 20% of the people want to go do that, that's not a formalized hike anymore. That's we're trying to run buses up, and you can only hold so many people in a bus. And it takes such an amount of time and so on. So we're really trying to talk about, hey, look, I can get 24 people up on this bus and they're going to hike together and split up as they go along. And I'll get 24 people on the next bus that, gets there 10 minutes later. So that's what's going to happen. There's no formalized hike in that kind of an environment. It'll be much more like the APE is in the sense that you're going to just have a continuous stream of people at that level. But.
Yeah, well, that will be interesting. Whether we do it as during the Ape on Steroids event, or if we end up doing a more typical slimmed down version, where we don't have a lot of, I think we have options to do that either way.
Yeah.
We just got to look at that.
Yeah. So we'll figure it out when we get there. So hopefully we are able to make a decision about which direction it's heading sooner rather than later.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for Cliff or Jesse about the ape? Anyone else? Okay. Well, let's move on to the bylaws vote. So I sent out an email. Oh, geez, that was on March 12th. And what I put on that email, we talked a little bit. I sort of highlighted the changes, the bylaw that the bylaw committee on Slack. We came up with just a handful of bylaws here. There's a total of 4 of them that we were looking at making some changes. These were all unanimous by the committee. Most of these are not so earth-shattering. I think there might be one that could be potentially, but most of it is more about just sort of housekeeping, cleaning up the bylaws a little bit. One actually relocates one to a different article because it made more sense being there because of the topic of that particular item. So hopefully you guys have taken a look at these. What I did is the first line captures what the committee was suggesting, and then I put down what the current bylaw reads, so you can see the difference between the two. So I think at this point, what we should do is just kind of go down these one by one. And we'll have a brief comment period right here, and then we can call a vote. Starting with the very first one here. This is written, it says, should we amend bylaw 3.2 to state, quote, a member is defined as an individual who has paid specific dues as outlined by the board. Additionally, family members may be added to an individual's membership as a non-voting member. So what it currently reads, this is, again, 3.2, a member is defined as an individual who qualifies for one of the categories of membership and who has paid specific dues for the current year. So this is a sort of a relic of a bylaw, because it goes back to when we had family memberships and all that. So this kind of cleans that up, and it doesn't really delineate between a premium member or a basic member. It doesn't matter. So this will help us should we decide to change membership altogether. And there was some talk about doing away with a premium membership and at one point in time, and we never really formally voted on anything like that. But I know Deb was talking about it from a treasury standpoint and a cost standpoint, that minting, the coins every year and giving them away to members as part of the premium membership, it's getting a little spendy because we're actually losing money on that at the end of the day anyway. So this bylaw kind of sets that up for us, where it doesn't specify any one particular membership. So that's where this came about, is it just kind of sort of paves the way for us should we decide to change membership down the road, and I know we have in the past. So what do you all think on this one, on this particular change?
So Chris, I reading through this, I just had one small thing that looked wrong to me. I think it's just a small spelling error.
Okay.
It says right now, what you really mean is a member should be defined as an individual who has paid the specified rather than specific dues.
Oh, yeah. Specified. Sure. That makes sense.
Which is the same word as it was before, but it's just specified dues is, I think, the word you meant.
Okay. Yes. I think I kind of copied these right off of what came out of the committee.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. It's just
cut and paste.
And it spell checks very well. That's the problem. So
yeah, so specified dues make sense. So we're just kind of omitting the categories part of the membership because it really shouldn't matter.
Right.
You pay your dues. This is what you get for your dues, and you can, we have this all the time where people they're a team. So we'll pick on Patrick. Team passed. Okay, that's a family. So we don't have the family membership anymore. So this just kind of clears that up and just says, okay, additionally, family members can be added to the individual's membership. They're non-voting. Boom. We just kind of clean that up. So we can certainly fix the specific to specified. That's not a big deal. And then, leave it at that. So anybody else have any other comments on that particular one?
The counts of one family.
What was that, Patrick?
That was Gene. He helped us to
Gene. Oh, I'm sorry.
two different accounts in one family. Let's use, for example, Brian Pandora and Flat Guy.
Yeah, well, I don't know I'm not sure if they're both paying members or just her, but
we do have members that are both parties are full-fledged members where they're both premiums. So they're both voting members. They each get their own badges. They each get a coin, even though they're the same family. So if they want to pay for it, we'll let them.
Yeah, we're not going to get in the way of that for sure. If each member wants to have a premium membership.
Yeah, but how about the voting aspect?
Well, they should be. I mean, the way I see it is if they're going to pay individual memberships, so especially if they want to be premium, but even for the basic, they still should be able to have a vote every election period. It's only fair to me.
Mm-hmm. But they each have to have their own account.
Yeah, so they would have to, so in the case of Prying Pandora and Plague Guy, only, if Prying Pandora has a paid membership but Plague Guy doesn't, then only she gets the vote. If he ponies up and pays for his own membership, then certainly he can. And he has that right to vote because he's a paid member. We're not going to delineate, and say, well, you live at the same household, you get one vote. No, it doesn't work that way. I mean, if somebody wants to pay us $50 for two people in a household, then I really think they should be able to both should have a vote. It's part of being a member.
Agree.
Agreed.
For what it's worth.
I think that's. I think the only question is that it's not stated in the bylaws that the additional family memberships are at any specific reduced cost to be able to do that. I think that might help clarify what is meant there, but I'm not sure that it's necessary either. So,
do we need to make the $1 for an extra badge as part of the family? Does that need to be in there someplace?
Well, I don't want to put the actual numbers of dollars in the bylaws. That's probably not the right place for it. Mm-hmm. You should probably just put in at a reduced, at a minimal price or at a minimal cost.
Yeah. Because then that ties us into what our membership costs are and all that, and then that is going to change. I mean, potentially it will over time, and so then you got to go in and revise a bylaw that says, okay, this membership costs this. It's much easier to go and change it on a website if we all decide we want to take the premium membership, for instance, and charge it $28 a year instead of $25. It's much easier to vote on that as a group and change it versus going through the bylaws and change it, because that requires a 2/3 vote versus changing a dollar amount on a membership. We just need a simple majority. So I'd rather not tie too many things into, especially things that could change over time very easily, like do we want to increase our, membership fees, and do we want to do away with a premium member and altogether and make everybody just one level of membership? That has been talked about in circles because it's much easier to track. Right now, we got to track, well, are you a basic or are you a premium? And, that's just more work for us down the road. And like I said, at the end of the day, the difference is the coin, and that coin costs a lot more money than it used to. And I think we need to raise the price on the premium memberships, but that's for another day and another topic. But I guess we don't want to put those amounts specifically in bylaws, because then we have to change them should we make that decide we want to update cost.
So bylaw 3.3 does mention that you can purchase additional name tags for immediate family members. And I would recommend that in this statement for 3.2 that we change the word additional to immediate family members instead of additional family members.
No, you know what? That's not a bad idea.
Excellent idea, Pat.
For consistencies, that's great.
Yeah, it clarifies it. So I like that idea. What does everybody else think about the two suggestions here on these two words?
Yeah, let's vote for them.
Me.
Yep.
Okay.
So are we going to vote on the original bylaw change?
I think.
Well, since we're discussing it right now, right now we're not completely changing the tone or context of those of the 3.2 change. We're just changing two words. So I don't think that the context of the change is drastically different. I'll leave it up to you guys. What do you guys think? Is this a massive change by changing the two words, or we can leave is the context of this particular change still captured when we just adjust those two words? What do you guys think?
I think you're protecting yourself for the future, and I think that it's not a huge change, but I think we should just vote for it anyway, because I think that I don't want to hear the people crying in the background. You know what I mean?
He's got
Makes
a point.
sense.
I
Okay.
live close to Abby. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that? Sorry. Chris has got my job. I'm all good.
Okay.
Throw me under the bus. Thank you very much.
All right then. All right. Well, then I say we if there's no further comment, I say we put this to a vote. So I'm just going to reread with the changes what 3.2 what we're voting on. So we're saying a member is defined as an individual who has paid specified dues as outlined by the board. Individual family members may be added to an individual's membership as non-voting members. So that's the change that we are talking about.
Wait, immediate family members. Immediate family members. I'm sorry. Immediate family members.
Immediate. Okay. All right. Jim, are you taking notes?
Hey guys, I'm really sorry about this. I've got my editor Nikki sitting next to me, so I'll blame it on.
All right, so Jim, you've got this written down since you're still secretary here for the next few days. So let's, and ultimately you're going to be the one who gets to change it in the bylaws anyway. So let's have it read. And you said immediate family members, so let's add that instead of take out additional and make it immediate, and we change specific to specified dues, and the rest of it is the same. So that's what we're voting on. So at this point, any more comments on the changes to 3.2?
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick.
Oh, very good. Outstanding. Okay, Patrick has got it up on the screen for us.
Yeah, but I can't cut and paste it.
No, but at least everybody can see, exactly what we're talking about here instead of verbalizing it. All right. So with that, do we want to go ahead and put this to a vote?
I'll make a motion.
Second it. Third.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and any opposed? Okay, well, I think that was unanimous. So go ahead and we'll adopt the changes to 3.2, and we'll make that effective immediately.
Cool.
Okay, moving on to number 2. Should bylaw 4.3 be removed, as bylaw 3.4 covers membership? So what 4.3 currently states, it says renewing members pay full dues. 3.4 reads, so that was 4.3. 3.4 reads, all membership is on a calendar year basis beginning on the date the dues are paid and expires 1 year from that date. It seems like we got maybe a little redundancy potentially here, but I want everybody's take on that.
I guess I don't understand why anybody would have ever thought that you wouldn't pay full dues as a renewing member, but that's just a...
Well, and again, I think that may have been a relic from back when we were prorating memberships back in the day, which was a great idea at the time, but trying to track that from a membership standpoint, that was a nightmare.
I understand.
Boatload more sense to say, okay, you renew today, your membership's good a year, from now, and expires on, the day before. So that really, I think, never should have been taken out a long time ago, and it just never did. Again, it's a relic bylaw that it just doesn't make sense.
I understand. No problems with it. Or
okay.
With, to be clear.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments on axing 4.3, striking it from the bylaws?
Sounds good.
Okay, well,
I'm reading 4.2, and it seems consistent with 4.2 though.
Okay.
Because 4.2 is dues are payable immediately upon becoming a member and renewable on the expiration date defined in Article 3. So 4.3 is renewing members pay full dues. I mean, maybe it should be part of 4.2.
Well, and that, again, it seems kind of a redundant thing.
It does.
Why would you not pay full dues? There's no scenario where we wouldn't pay full dues.
Was there ever a discount? Was there ever like a renewal discount or anything like that?
There was a prorated back when we did everybody at January 1.
In fact, actually, what I would just in terms of a membership thing, if we ever wanted to offer hey, look, renewing members get a 20% discount, say, this would prohibit us from being able to offer that. So I would prefer to take it out anyway, just because, I don't understand why you wouldn't expect that, generally speaking. But if you wanted to encourage people to renew, that would be one way we could, as a board, offer to do that. But I don't think that's a good idea, but we could if we wanted to.
That's a very good point, Cliff. You with that statement there, you can't offer a discount. You're right.
It ties us to that. If we ever wanted to do some kind of a membership drive or something where we try to get people to renew, a month or two ahead of time instead of waiting for the membership to expire. There's sort of fun things we can do with that from a membership standpoint down the road. But again, this would kill us for trying to do anything like that. So even if we wanted to do Renew 2 months ahead of time, and you get a 5% discount off your membership. We wouldn't be able to pull that off.
A thought on that? You could, to get new members, you can always say your first year you get 20% off or something.
Remember, there's all kinds of different things that we could potentially do with that, and we just, with this bylaw, we can't.
Okay, nix it, strike it. Let's vote.
All
We
right,
have to vote on it.
we have
We
to
need
vote
a
on
motion?
it. Yes, we need a motion.
I motion to strike it.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Okay.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Jim, was that an oppose or was that a?
That was an oppose.
You oppose striking that, huh?
Mhm.
Okay,
Just
well,
moving with the different amounts is a pain in the ass, no matter who does it. I mean, even the 1525 is a pain in the ass to keep straight.
yeah. Well, we will take that down, and we'll take that record the one nay here, but it's 2/3 votes, so I think we've got.
Oh
the
yeah,
majority.
no, I knew. I voted aye for the other two I had. So.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the clarification. So it looks like the vote stands. So we'll go ahead and remove the 4.3 out of our bylaws. So Jim.
Well, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a whole thing about not being able to change the amounts. Wasn't that part of this, or was that something else? Change the values.
No, this one just, all it talked about was paying in full. Renewing members must pay in full. When would they not pay in full? It doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
I mean,
Is that
If
may
we
have
offered them a discount is when we wouldn't.
Right.
Or a prorated, like you
right.
said.
And this ties us to force everybody to pay in full. But if we ever wanted to do a special promo, just to drum up new membership or renewals, then we wouldn't be able to do that. Period. We would be stuck with that. And again, it's addressed in other places, so it doesn't make sense to have it in there.
Okay. I think I don't have the original bylaw in front of me to see. That's why I'm just going by what I sent you in the email. So
yeah,
maybe Patrick can share a screen again.
yeah.
It says 4.3. It just says renew members must pay in full, and we have 3.4 that says, which is funny that the numbers are kind of the reverse of each other, but 3.4 is saying membership is on a calendar year basis, beginning from the date the dues are paid and expires 1 year from that date. So it doesn't make sense to have. Renewing members must pay in full.
Okay.
Again.
No, I changed my nay to an aye.
All right. It's unanimous. Awesome. Okay.
Thanks, Patrick, for us visual learners.
Yeah.
Patrick, you're becoming the board lackey here and able to bring the stuff up, and I appreciate that. Okay, let's move on to number 3. So number 3 has to do with bylaw 5.1.3. That particular bylaw reads, all executive committee members must, in capital letters, must reside, or must be residents rather of Washington State. That is what we're the change that we're looking at. What it currently reads, 5.13 reads, all board members must be residents of Washington State. So that sounds like it may not be a big difference, but it really does, because we are essentially removing the requirement that all board members have to be Washington State residents, which essentially opens up chapter reps, particularly that if they reside outside of the borders of Washington, they can still be chapter reps. This is tamping it down and making it very clear that if you're an executive committee member, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, you have to be a resident of this state. You cannot live outside of the borders of Washington. And I think that, to me, makes perfect sense. And again, it allows chapter reps that happen to reside just outside the borders, they can still represent their chapter. So I want to throw that out for conversation. What do you guys think? I think it's a great idea, personally. But what do you guys think?
Chris, I agree with it. It's a good idea. Is there a time frame? So let's say you get a great job in Utah and off you go. How quickly do you have to resign? As soon as you leave.
That's addressed in the replacement.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, hang on, I got a comment here.
That's addressed in actually the next one with the position becoming vacant when the president solicits nominees.
Yeah, there are other bylaws that address vacancies on the board. We've had a few of them of late over the years, last couple in particular, with Chandra leaving and moving back to, speaking of Utah.
Colorado is where she moved, wasn't that?
Oh, she went to Colorado. That's right.
No, she went to Utah.
Oh, to Utah.
Colorado.
Yeah, she's in the Salt Lake.
Utah.
But
Yeah, so
okay, so even
I
with
have a question.
somebody going to Utah, how far outside of Washington are you allowed them going? Are you going to allow them to go?
Great question.
well,
Great
that is a fantastic question, and we didn't really talk about a radius from Washington, border, and we didn't really talk about even somebody living in Canada, in British Columbia, and potentially being the 48 North chapter rep.
I'm gonna say, if you don't mind, I'd like to actually ask you if you could just consider that one a little bit more than what you just said, because you need documents to come over the border, and you can't just put anybody in that position. Being somebody who had a green card and not having that green card available to me until I got my citizenship, if I was living in Canada and somebody would have made me the 48 North chapter rep, there's no way I would have been able to actually break the law and come down into the U.S. and try to make it run back over the border.
Well, and that obviously, with somebody residing in BC, that brings on a whole different sort of set of challenges.
Well, and no one's going to make you a chapter rep if you don't want to be. So if you knew that you couldn't come down and host events, you wouldn't commit to the responsibility.
Well, I don't think, as an immigrant, I don't think you guys understand my thought. Okay, that's not it. Okay, never mind.
Well, and
I was just commenting on what you said, Antoine, of if I lived in Canada and someone made me the chapter rep, no one would just bequeath it upon you and say, surprise, now you have to come down into Washington all the time and host all these events.
In other
words, would Land Monkey, could he potentially be the 48 North chapter rep if he ever so desired to do so? I don't know. I like Chris is shaking his head no.
I'll shake my head louder.
That guy has enough stuff on his plate anyway, but just for the heck of it, I mean, could he do that if he was willing to come into Linden or Bellingham and hold events? I mean, he in theory could, but
not this week he can't.
Not this week he can't.
Yeah.
And I think that brings the challenge is, what if for whatever reason the border is closed, whether because there's flooding, which happened here not too long ago. Sumas, I think Sumas and Linden were closed because of flooding. So what if, somebody that resides in Canada as a Canadian citizen wants to be a WSGA rep? I think from that standpoint, and certainly from a vetting standpoint, those questions would have to come up. Would be,
Yes.
you prove to us that you're willing, capable, and able to come down and host events in the northern regions of Washington State. I'd like to see how you plan on dealing with those adversities. And so I don't know that it's necessarily going to be that big of an issue for our friends to the north, but definitely, looking at Idaho and Oregon particularly, being a chapter rep there, I think it's very reasonable. Now, we were talking, and I remember distinctly, we were toying around the idea of setting the person has to reside X number of miles away from the Washington border. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, if someone is willing to, let's say they're willing to commute from Boise and come all the way up to the Inland Empire and host events, hey, more friggin' power to them if they want to do that drive, right? I mean, and the same would go for someone who's, let's say they live in Missoula and want to, do that trek all the way over to Spokane to hold events. I mean, they want to do it, and the chapter votes that person in. I mean, more power to them.
Okay, I mean, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm confused on this. Are we allowing people outside of Washington to be a chapter rep?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what this bylaw change would do, because right now, as it sits, it clearly states you have to be a resident to be on the board. So that would include chapter reps. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we're getting it down to just executive committee, and I think that makes perfect sense. For the person who's in charge of our books, the person who is running the organization, the VP, the secretary, they should be in Washington. I mean, that's a vital part of this position. But chapter reps, I think you can be a chapter rep and live in Portland, or be a chapter rep and live in Coeur d'Alene or Kellogg, or even Boise, I suppose, or Pendleton. You're close enough to the border that you can come into the state, and most cases you probably are anyway. If you live in, say, Pendleton, Oregon, you're probably going into Tri-Cities quite often anyway. And the same would be true for someone who's, like I said, Kellogg or somewhere. The big city is Spokane, so you're going to be traveling there most likely. Possibly could even be working there for all I know. So I think for a chapter rep, their main function, of course, is to hold events. If you're willing to drive a couple hours to get to, say, Tri-Cities or Vancouver or Spokane, hey, more power to you.
Okay, so it would read all executive board.
So what it says. So I'll read it again. It says, should 5.1.3 indicate all executive committee members must be residents of Washington State, versus all board members must be residents of Washington State.
Thank you.
So that's the change. We basically, and that change, like I said, will allow chapter reps to not have to be residents of Washington. And when I say that, I mean like have a physical address, that their home address has WA after the city,
So
and not anything else.
this means we're also going to need to amend 9.3.3, which says that a chapter rep must normally reside in the chapter they want to represent.
Well, I think we did that with, there's a bylaw on there about out of area chapter, OOC, out of chapter. We added that change, was it last year? Where it allows somebody who, let's say they live,
No.
What do you mean no?
No,
If they-
I was
they
the
live
one who
in
brought that one up, and you guys struck that.
No, the OOC is live. So in other words, and Deb was doing that for a while. She was living in King County.
Oh, right, yes, yeah.
And she was representing the Southwest chapter, and she could document and prove that because she was going down and taking care of family in Oregon, she was frequently, almost daily, but certainly weekly, she was driving through that chapter and would spend a lot of time down there, and she did a lot of caching down there, etc. So we allowed that bylaw got changed so that you did not have to necessarily reside in the chapter to be the chapter rep. Now, we had some strings attached to that. You had to be nominated by a current active member from that chapter, and then you would have to still be voted into that position. So we had a few, checks and balances, if you will, on that, and that's how that came about.
So that would apply for your out of state then.
But it doesn't particularly and specifically state out of state, and that
It
and
does
that
say
bylaw,
out of chapter, and if you're out of state, you're out of chapter.
but not necessarily. Like I said,
Chris?
Deb's scenario is a perfect example of that. She did live in state, but she didn't live in chapter. So technically,
Well, in that case, but I'm talking about your new proposed bylaw.
about requiring.
Once you change the executive committee,
Yes.
then if somebody who wants to run for chapter rep, say if somebody decides that they want to run for a chapter rep, then they would basically fall under the out of chapter requirements of 9.3.3.
But the problem is we have the 5.1.3 that says all board members must reside in the state, and so that bylaw's got to be changed.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is once you change that, then 9.3.3 would also apply to anybody who's out of state that wants to run to be considered as chapter member. They would have to meet those 9.3.3 requirements.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Because this says out of area chapter. So this is specifying chapter representatives, not necessarily executive committees.
Hey, Chris?
Yeah.
You got to bring out the point there that the out of chapter position is when that chapter does not have willing person to be the chapter rep. That's when the OSC came into play. You have a person in that chapter is already in that position or is in that position, it doesn't apply.
That's a different story. But yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
What happened down in the Southwest was that Ray and Brenda, they moved from there back up to Spokane, left the Southwest chapter without a chapter rep. Nobody down there was willing to step into that position.
Mhm.
And that's where we changed the bylaws, allowing Deborah to go down and be that representative.
And be the rep down there. And she stuck it out for a year and found the Supernauts to take over. And then she bowed out. Which was a good resolution to that problem. And yes, I mean, obviously there are circumstances where somebody has to leave the state or move. In the case of Brenda and Ray, what if they would have moved to Idaho? I mean, they technically could probably still be the chapter reps under the OOC, but that'd be kind of hard to do, technically. You're talking the other side of the state. Now, if they would have moved to Portland, Oregon, or somewhere in the suburbs, then they probably could have stayed on. The problem is they are now the 5.1.3 would really kind of preclude them from being a chapter rep because now they reside in Portland and in Oregon and not necessarily in Washington anymore. Though they could very feasibly cross the river and hold events. So for that standpoint, it'd be very easy to do without a problem.
So you'd literally have to get rid of 9.3.3.
So 9.3.3, yeah. Well, we probably would have to. The only difference with that is it's specifying chapter reps only. It doesn't say anything about executive committees.
Well, that's fine, Chris. So how about this? Why don't we vote on this one, activate it? Patrick is correct. Anybody for the next 2 months would probably had to abide to 9.3.3 in order to become a chapter rep. But then during the next meeting in 2 months, when you guys have your next new meeting with your new members, you can vote to abolish 9.3.3.
Well, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jeff.
We are putting people from out of state into being members of chapters. They don't have to live in, there's no place in here that says they have to live in the state or in the area of the chapter. It just says they have to be a member.
No.
Where does it say you have to live there?
9.3.3, to run for chapter representative, a member must meet the criteria cited in bylaw 931 and 932 and normally must reside in the chapter they want to represent.
Oh.
Normally.
Right. That's the key word there.
Right.
And then there's the continued language about being considered as an out of area rep or out of chapter nominee.
Correct.
And they become a member of that chapter.
Yeah.
We have people in New York that are member of Inland Empire.
Yeah.
There's somebody in Maryland that's a member of Puget Sound.
Well, and that's true. But if okay, let's take the person from New York. Are they going to run for chapter rep? I mean, we're going to seriously, when it came down to the vetting part of it, we would be questioning that. It's like, yeah, you're a member, you're a voting member, but how are you going to hold that position that far away? You can't. And I don't think it would ever happen anyway. But I mean, it could. And we would need to address that in some way. And I think the vetting process would flush that out. Okay, Casher, how do you plan on running the chapter when you're on the other side of the country? They would have to now if they had family out here and maybe they would frequently visit an elderly parent in Spokane or something, maybe okay, but I think that's a rare scenario.
So I didn't want to derail this because I just want to make sure that we're aware that somebody has to obviously follow these other 9.3.3 rules, because there may be a situation where, say, you have somebody who lives in Post Falls. They're 5 minutes from state line in Spokane area in Washington. They want to run for chapter rep. They're literally in a metro area that extends across the border right there.
Mm-hmm.
And it would make perfect sense for them to be part of that chapter.
Correct.
So it's just something going forward that, when we have somebody who wants to run for those chapters, that, having an opportunity like this or having the ability to open this up, I think should definitely be available. But perhaps the verbiage, we should look at, maybe there needs to be some type of either a vetting process or a boundary or something to make it realistic, because if you have somebody who lives 10 hours away, that's probably going to drastically reduce the amount of interaction that chapter rep is going to have within their chapter. Thank you.
But they won't. Then if nobody knows them, nobody's going to vote for them.
Right.
Well, if they're running unopposed.
Yeah. well,
that's and if I remember right, Jim, we when we were looking at this at one point, we were kind of going, okay, well, should we set a mile boundary for that scenario to say, okay, you have to live within 20 miles of the Washington border or the 30 or whatever arbitrary number we were going to toss up there. And I'm trying to remember how that went down, but I think we kind of said, well, okay, so that person that lives in, let's say they live in Lake Oswego, or even go further, let's say Corvallis, and they want to be the Southwest chapter rep. Well, okay, Corvallis is a nice trek from the Washington border. Do we want to say, sorry, you're more than 20 miles away from, the Vancouver area, which is the hub of that chapter? Sorry, we're not going to let you run because you're too far away.
I think it really depends. Really, it's going to depend on their situation. I'd rather not just put a number on it right now because, hey, look, you might have a your physical address there, but I know lots of people who basically they live their life on the road, and if they're maybe they have a home address in Timbuktu, but they spend 85% of their work life in a particular area. Well, that's where they at, really. So maybe they have to be there for some other reason for a nominal address.
Another thing that I think we ought to consider is that we need to let chapters have their own independence. I don't think that WASA should be I hate to use the word dictatorship, but I think
Dictatorship.
we should have the chapters have their own independence and run their chapter the way that they want it. And if it kind of meets the criteria of the WASA, or the WSGA, so be it.
Mhm.
I don't know. I disagree with that. I think there needs to be a little bit of guidance because I'll be honest with you, it's hard enough.
You guys can use if you have a problem with that chapter, and let's say, for example, they don't have enough qualified members, for example, to be a chapter. Well, you know what? That's their problem. They don't get allotment. That's you got a little control, as far as when it comes to like the financial standpoint, but then let the chapters be independent.
No.
Yeah. Well, we try to for the most part, but I think Antoine's right. I mean, we have to have bylaws and these sorts of things, but
We do have.
we have to have a governing body. But at the same time, I think the chapter reps should be able to hold events when they want to, and set the frequency and where they have them. I mean, obviously, it's got to be within their borders, unless we're doing cross-chapter stuff, and we've done some of that, which is always great. We can get two chapters together and hold an event, and promote both chapters. I think that's a fantastic idea. But
I'm the only one that did that. I don't think it was really fair. Last year and a half, I was the only one that did that, and I did 3 of them. So let's just at least move on and figure out if we're going to vote for this or not. But sorry, guys.
Okay, well, all right. So getting back to the original issue here, then, or the original topic about this, about the bylaw and executive committee members.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say I move to amend the bylaw so that executive members have to be in state, but chapter reps do not.
Thank you. I second that.
All right. Well, we've got a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. I think we have a unanimous vote here. Jim, did you take that down verbatim? Because I like that version of it, by the way, Jesse.
No,
I can produce it again if you needed it. I can type it out, Jim, so that you can paste it if that makes it easier.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just
Oh,
email it to you.
Screens going on.
Yeah,
That's perfect.
no worries. I gotcha.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's a perfect statement there. I like that. All right. So that was number 3. So last one. This one's really more of a cleaning up of stuff here. So we're talking about moving 9.7 and relocate it and rename it as bylaw 5.8. And then we're going to add the reference of following bylaw 9.6 that 9.7 has been relocated to 5.8. So what all that means, bylaw 9.7, as it sits today, indicates that if any elected position becomes vacant, the president shall solicit nominees and appoint a replacement for the remainder of the term, subject to these bylaws and approval of a simple majority of the board. Article 5 addresses Article 5 of the bylaws address the board of directors. So that's why we're looking at moving it to 5 from 9. So it says, by getting this out now, or hold on. I'm reading something else here. So that's all we're doing with it is just moving it to the board of directors because it kind of makes more sense. Again, from a structural standpoint, from our bylaws, it's addressing vacancies on the board. It makes more sense to be in Article 5 versus Article 9.
Okay.
Any comments on that?
Okie dokie.
No comment.
Okay. Antoine's good with it. Anybody else?
I'm good with it.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good with it.
Okay. Well, we just need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was my last vote.
That was your last vote. Any opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Jim, you got this on the email. Go ahead and make those little really they're administrative changes. That's really all that is. Moving something where we can easily find it should that need arise down the road, and we're trying to figure out, oh, it's down in 9. It should be in 5. Okay, so with that, we slide to new business, and we kind of talked about some of the stuff already. We talked about the virus. I don't think we really need to hash too much more on that, other than I think I'm going to leave this up to the specific chapter reps about events. I think we use common sense on this. If we're going to do a WSGA event, let's really think about where we're doing it. Good luck, I suppose, in finding an indoor venue to hold one. The restaurants are pretty much done. So I think we're really stuck with doing outdoor events, whether they be CETOs or events at a park. I think any indoor events are pretty much kind of done, at least for now. So I'm going to leave that up to you guys individually as reps. You make the call. You know your local areas better than I do or anybody else on this board. If you've got a public health board that's really putting the kibosh on outdoor events, then I think you've got your marching orders in terms of holding events. So I'm going to leave that up individually to each chapter. It's up to you guys what you want to do. On King County, though, I think King County's pretty much squashed any kind of public events whatsoever based on their criteria. I think from this region here, I'd say because of what Constantine has said about essentially none, unless you meet the criteria, I'd say don't hold them in King County. And that shouldn't be a problem for you, Chris, because you're in Pierce County. So there you go.
Hooray!
Do you guys know, as far as Groundspeak is concerned, when it comes to regular meet and greet events, are they bending the rules a little tiny bit?
For what?
Well, okay, so that one rule that I kind of was trying to discuss earlier, as far as going out and actually finding caches. I mean, because to be quite honest with you, setting up an event to hike without stating that you're going to go out and find caches, it's kind of like setting up an event to go biking without saying that you're going to stop every mile for a cache.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's people that do that, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. As long as I get to work, I'm good.
Yeah, I did that for Monte Cristo. I said, let's hike to Monte Cristo. Didn't say anything about getting all the caches along the way.
Oh, yeah, we did find caches, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, a few.
Hey, Jim, what about that paddle event you did out there on Lake Union?
Right.
There at the Utah?
That was just to go paddling.
Yeah, we're just going to go paddling. Yeah, sure we are. We're going to go out there. We're going to paddle all the little islands out there and find the caches that are on islands.
All those 5 terrains. Yeah.
I had a huge paddle event just last winter or last fall that was on Lake Ballinger. That was a WSGA event. So.
Yeah, and if I remember right, I think there was a certain Wherigo cache that kind of everybody was going after. So it's kind of like
there was, yeah.
You know darn well that if you're doing some sort of activity that's related to the event, that there's caching going on. I mean, come on. Groundspeak, they're not a bunch of dummies over there. They know.
So, yeah, and it's the local reviewers that take a look at these, not Groundspeak. So
that's true. They're the ones that are listing it. It's their name that goes down on the event when it gets listed. So yeah, I mean, I think they know. I mean, they know us. They know local cachers.
what I can tell you from being friends with several of them, what you really need to do is just follow the guidelines. And the guidelines basically are going to say you have to be there for at least, 30 minutes.
Right.
And that's what you have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Pretty fair enough. Pretty fair enough.
You know, Chris, Riggs has privileges with Groundspeak because, Mountain Bike is going to have a 20-year event for the oldest cache place in Idaho, which he plays up at Priest Lake.
Mhm.
And after the event, they're going to have a, opportunity for anybody to go up and find that cache. So there you got an event with it going after cache involved with the event.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they're really stringent on that per se. Obviously the idea is to get cachers together, whether you're going to, get in a paddle boat and go around a lake, or, going to do a group hike to a ghost town or whatever. I don't think they're going to be too much of a stickler on it.
Just out of curiosity, why does that rule exist?
Well, that's a good question. And I think what they're trying to do is limit some of these sort of frivolous type of events where, okay, you're going to do a first to find run. So maybe somebody, if you're let's say you're an event organizer and you have, a friend or someone who's going to post a cache, or they're going to list a cache near your event, and the whole purpose of that event is to have a massive FTF run. Okay, obviously it's not about the event; it's about getting a large group together to go for an FTF. And there's another one where they do an archive party. I've heard that too. They frown upon archive parties. So those kind of things they don't like. They want the purpose of the event to be primarily getting people together. And what happens after the event's gone and people take off? They're going to go and find caches nearby. But you're not listing it as let's go get an FTF event, or let's hike the GCD event. If you're holding it in the parking lot, obviously you're going to go up there. But as long as you're not advertising it that it's about something else, and the preface isn't having people get together, it's there's much more than that. I think that's their big issue is having some ulterior motive for the event other than just having the event. And then
I'll say this again. There's 3 words: follow the guidelines.
Right.
Okay, look at the guidelines. The guidelines say 30 minutes. And I don't remember, there's other things that are specific about events right off the top of my head, but that's basically what you really need to do. Course cachers are going to go find caches after the end of the event. When was the last time that didn't happen? Okay, so don't let that stop you from thinking about that. But you do need to have an event that meets the guidelines. That's the main thing you have to do. So
right. And your event was great, though, Cliff. The Ballinger, Lake Ballinger one was great because, hey, if you didn't want to paddle, if you don't want to rent a boat and go paddle, you don't have to.
I've gone to the ride bikes events without a bike.
There you go.
Yeah.
How many times do you have an event with lackeys and they all go caching afterwards?
They come.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Let's talk a little bit 501c here real quick. And that was going to talk about that, but I've talked to her today. And I've talked to her previously about this. She has some information, as maybe some of you don't know. She sits on another board. I think it's a choir organization, and she's a treasurer for that outfit. And that particular group was able to get a 501c status, and what they did is they found a almost pro bono attorney group that worked with them to get the proper 501c status in place for them, and the cost was pretty minimal. It was around $150, They took care of all the paperwork, did the filings and all that fun stuff, and made sure that that organization was in the proper subsection of the 501c. And there's, if you're not familiar with them, there's a lot of them. I think there's 9 of them, I believe. So, and certain subsections really work better with certain types of, nonprofit organizations. And I know there's some of those specifically are pretty stringent on having, let's say, your income that you're bringing in has to be from a certain source. So obviously, if you have a paid membership, that would qualify, but maybe not have an online store where you're selling merchandise. So you get into some of the really splitting hairs of what your organization is and where your source of income is. And you really have to be careful when you're getting into a 501c and trying to get that status that you get into the right one. And with our type of organization, we could actually fit in a couple of different subsections of the 501c statute. So it really depends. But again, there's specific rules for each one, and some may not work for us better as others. But the benefits of being a 501c, I think, are huge. For one thing, other companies and municipalities, there's an incentive for them to work with us. So for instance, if a chapter rep wants to rent a shelter at a city park, there may be a discounted fee or not even a fee at all in some cases, to rent that shelter or to use that shelter because you're in a federally recognized nonprofit organization. So there's that side. Businesses, and in particular, I think of Microsoft here in specifics, but it could be other companies too, where if you're recognized as a 501c, you will get discounted access to their suite of software. So, for instance, this version of Teams we're using is the free version. If we were at 501c, we could apply for a discounted version or a discounted fee and get the paid version of this for next to nothing. So that's just another example of why it's a good idea for us to be a 501. A lot of state geocaching organizations around the country are 501 already. I've had some discussions with some other presidents of other geocaching organizations across the country. There's even a gal out there in Northern Virginia. Her background is with 501s in particular, and she has a lot of information about that on our Slack group. So I want to put that out there because I think for us as an organization, we're missing the boat on not being a 501. Yeah, it's great that we're a state nonprofit, but I think, for us to really benefit from some of the tax laws, we should really look at a 501c recognized, and so that we're on the federal rolls. So I want to toss that out there. Annette is willing to front this for us and connect with this outfit and see what it would cost, if it's still $150 or whatever they're charging right now, this pro bono outfit, but or this law attorney group. Yeah. But I want to throw that out there, and I want to get everybody's take on that. What do you guys think about us, anteing up and becoming a 501?
I think it's great.
It's great idea.
Yeah, I think it's
I
fantastic.
was shocked we weren't already.
Yeah.
I think
The limited income, is there any downside to becoming a 501?
There's extra paperwork and stuff that we have to file every year. We're already having to do that with the state because right now we're a state nonprofit. So there's yearly forms that we have to submit to Olympia. So what would happen is if we became a federal, then we would, there would be forms that we would have to complete. I mean, basically they want to see what our books look like. They want to see what our income is, what our expenses are, that kind of thing. But I don't think it's that terribly difficult, but I think the benefits most definitely outweigh the hassle, if you will, that we have to go through every year. And like I said, that if we can get rent a shelter cheap or for next to nothing, that's huge for us because we can do a lot more events and not have to, our expenditures are going to be so much less for holding events and such things. Yeah. And that would even go to rent a hall. When I was chapter rep, I rented the Kennydale Memorial Hall, and I was able to finagle them to honor our state nonprofit status, and so they gave us a discounted rate to rent that facility, which was a great spot for. I think we did holiday parties there. It was a huge venue if you've ever been there. But they cut us a break, and because we were a state nonprofit and weren't technically we saved something like $100 to rent the place for an entire 24-hour period. So those are the kind of benefits you're looking at is a discount on those kind of things.
I will also say I'm also on a board similar to Annette. I'm on another board, and we were also considering the 501c classification because of some benefits. It ended up being that there were some fees that were a surprise. We initially heard that there was a smaller fee to do it, but then there was a larger submission fee that we had to, in addition, to pay for. And even though you don't have to pay sales tax and all those other benefits annual, it just didn't end up. It ended up being a lot of surprises. So I just want to put that out there. And it sounds like Annette is familiar with these things, but my personal experience with the process is that there are surprises around the corner. It's not as straightforward as you would hope it would be, and then we ended up just being really frustrated and didn't do it. But anyway, if it ends up working out for us, I think that's great.
I didn't know that, Jesse, and I think it's worth exploring, but I didn't know that, and I think it's probably worth taking exactly what you just said into consideration. I will say one thing though, when you're a 501c, there are grants and funds on the federal side that are available. That they could be available to the WSGA, a huge of them, not just like $100 grants, but big ones, and I think that might come in to become a good benefit to all of you.
That's a good idea. I know Patrick has a little background with 501s too. Is there anything you want to add on to that, Patrick?
It'll definitely be a benefit for us. We won't get a break on sales tax. We will still have to continue to pay sales tax. It depends on what our annual income is. We'll make some differences on the fees for us. The other thing that definitely will benefit us being on the 501c3 status is the ability to access the different programs for donations, for getting discounts on different resources like technical stuff like you brought up with being able to access Teams, or getting access to software, hardware, other programs that are out there for nonprofits. So you don't shy away from it. It's not a horrible process. It's actually pretty easy to go through. The hardest part is just doing the paperwork. We will probably have to do some bylaw amendments to talk about, what happens to our funds if WSGA ever dissolves, where do all of our assets and funds go. So there's going to be little things like that you're going to have to work through. But it's not an awful process. And, the hardest part is just doing the paperwork, getting through that 6-month process. And at the end of it, it's really easy to take care of.
Yeah, that's great information. So yeah, I mean, I can see where Jesse was coming from, and I can see people throwing their hands up, going, But and I know, Patrick, you guys did yours all on your own, and it sounded like it was fairly easy to do. I don't know how this would work for us. In some way, kind of like the idea of a pro bono an attorney who has experience in this doing it for us, so we don't dot the wrong I's and cross the wrong T's, kind of thing.
What is like our gross income, roughly?
Geez, I can't imagine it's less than 20,000 a year. I'm sure. I can't imagine it's over that. It's probably closer to 10 or 15. I mean, our biggest moneymaker has got to be the APE event. As terms of membership dues, I mean, that's where I would say a good chunk of our sort of operating costs come from that. But that's pretty minimal if we've got, 225 members and not all of them are paying $25 a piece. We do have some basic members, so you can kind of get a general idea of where our money's coming in from. And then, of course, everything else is whatever we sell off our website. That's, that's sort of the gravy in terms of our income. But really, it's the APE event. We have to put a ton of money out, but we get that back and then some generally. And we get stuck with, extra merchandise that we have to sell, of course. But
yeah. Because I mean, it does go off gross income, and when we did the last nonprofit, that one, I mean, their gross income was about $25,000, and it was about $250 to file.
Mm. So I imagine ours would probably be less.
It's like 250. I think 250, 275, right around there is the minimum.
Mm. But that's a one-time deal, and then we're done. Then we just got to do the annual paperwork. And what is that? Is it just you have to turn in a report or something, or financials? I think basically I turn in your financials, right, to show what you made and where it went.
Basically, no. You can make under 50. If you make under $50,000 a year, all you have to do is report your gross income.
No. Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, that would be us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you still have to keep like your board meeting notes and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's also supposed to keep on record, which we do anyways.
Right. Exactly. That's part of our charter. Really, is we have to do that. It's in our bylaws. We have to do it. So that we're not really going off anything that we're not already doing. And I think even for the state, we have to. For the state nonprofit status, there's annual forms that we have to submit to the I forget the secretary. I forget where it goes to.
Yeah. Secretary.
Yeah. So anyway, doesn't sound like it would be that much more of a burden for us financial paperwork wise. It's just at the front end of it. There's obviously the cost. And the forms, and then I think really just finding the right what sub statute of the 501c that we fit into, and that's probably the biggest challenge right there, is picking the correct one that allows us to continue operating like we do now, and not get pigeonholed into one where we realize, oh crap, we can't have an online store anymore. And I know there's rules like that, where your online presence is affected in some way, and again, obviously there's you can only, have so much income, but then you get Goodwill, for instance, which is a great example. Goodwill is a nonprofit. They're making tons of money, a lot more than 50,000 a year. I mean, I'm sure they're in like the million range. And they've got paid, their CEOs they get a salary. So it's not like you can't make money as a nonprofit. You just have to, account for what you are making, and, it has to be documented. And again, we would never I can't ever see us making 50,000 a year. that would be impossible.
Don't
we
be
would
short-sighted.
Well, we would have to really up our membership dues to get anywhere close to that.
Just to be clear, if we had the Giga Ape, we'll make a lot more than $50,000 as a gross thing. We'll spend a lot too, obviously. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we're gonna be in the hole at least initially, but we had to put up a big chunk of money. But yeah, I mean, there's that thing, and I don't know if I know there's, even as a state nonprofit, we can only carry so much on our books at any given time. So having a bankroll of 20 or 30,000 sitting in our bank account, that doesn't sit real well. We have to spend that money, and I think in the past when we've been in that situation, we start handing out member bonuses. We start minting special coins for members and various things like that to spend that money, so we're not sitting on a bankroll, because they both the state and the federal government would kind of frown upon that. Well, you're not profit. You got 30,000 in the bank. So go out and buy stuff if we had to be in that situation. Okay, well, what I'll do then is I'll just have Annette do a deeper dive on this and maybe reach out to this group that she's worked with in the past and see if we can get a hard and fast sort of cost for us, and just see what they can come back with, and we bring it back to the board. And then I'm thinking maybe for a May event or our May meeting, we talk about formally jumping into the 501 arena, becoming a nonprofit at that point, once we have a firm number on the cost.
Cool.
Okay. WSGA. Oh yeah. So I have the 20th anniversary celebration as our next item. The only thing I wanted to talk about on that was I have been reached out by Annie Love at HQ about asking us if we want to have a booth at the 20th anniversary celebration. There is a very small fee that actually doesn't go to them. It goes to the lovely city of Seattle, because if we're going to sell anything at our booth, which I don't know why we would not, what would be the point of going to the 20th anniversary celebration and have a booth and not sell anything? We would have to get some sort of a vendor's license, which costs all of a whopping $10. Plus, of course, we need volunteers to run the thing too. So I have not committed one way or another to HQ yet. There's a form I have to go online and fill out if we decide to do that. But before I pull the trigger on that, I want to talk to the board first and see what you guys think about us having a booth there at the Seattle Center.
What's the deadline, and is it refundable?
I'll have to look at what the deadline is, because now I don't remember.
And it's only $10 refund. I'm sure you can donate that, right?
Yeah,
I don't.
$10 is not a big cost, but
No, the cost is pretty minimal. So that's not really the issue. I'm just thinking of, here it is here. What does she say? I just want to reach out to see if the WSGA is interested in having a booth at HQ Celebration on August 15th. Vendor booths will be located inside Fisher Pavilion at Seattle Center. We could have a 10 by 10 booth available for you for free if you're interested. If you need a larger space, then it goes up significantly. Then there's actually a big fee. The event hours run from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Event booths should be set up by 9:30 a.m. at the latest. If you are interested in joining us, there's a link. And then she said something about, I think it was on here. It was on the link, if I remember right here, where it mentions the vendor fee. And then it looks like they'll even provide tables and stuff too, which they would rent to us, of course. So we wouldn't necessarily even need to bring since this is going to be indoors, we wouldn't even need to bring a pop-up shelter. This is really just our gear. So with a 10 by 10, you get a table and 2 chairs. If you need additional stuff, then they're gonna nickel and dime a little bit on that, and have additional tables, $13 for 6 foot, 8 foot's 13, folding chairs are 4. I mean, I think on that stuff we can just haul that in ourselves and not have to rent that. And then it says, then this is the fun part. Do you have a current City of Seattle business license, which we do not. It is a requirement to have one, and that's where the $10 comes in. So we can do this cheaply.
Do it.
We'll just,
Well, wait, I have a question.
yes.
I worry about volunteers. I would imagine everybody who is coming to that event would want to partake in the activities that HQ was offering, not sit at the booth the whole time, or even part of a time. I could be totally wrong on that. Maybe nobody I mean, we could feasibly find people of that, but I know, like for myself, if I can go to that, I will be doing the activities there and then probably in Snoqualmie for the APE event the next day.
Well, and that's an excellent point. Is you're talking about that's a 7-hour event.
1 hour.
I wouldn't expect somebody to be there the whole time. I mean, maybe, but the whole point is you're going there to enjoy the celebration and not work it. So yeah, I mean, could we do 1 hour, 1 hour shifts? I mean, I suppose we could if there was enough interest.
So,
go ahead.
Can I jump in here for just a second? Because
Sure.
assuming that this thing is going to happen, I'm going to make the assumption that APE is also going to happen. And if we are going to do that, one of the things I would really, really like to do is try and give people out their APE registration packets early. And this would be a perfect opportunity for people to pick them up there.
That's excellent idea.
So we really need to do this. This isn't optional as far as I'm concerned. We have to do it.
Well, that's
One quick thing on volunteers would be kind of cool. If we have 7 chapters, have each chapter take an hour.
Yeah,
there you go. What an awesome idea. Excellent, Jerry. I like that.
And be responsible. 2 volunteers for 1 hour.
2 volunteers for 1 hour, Nikki says. And then if you guys want and can deal with the crying baby, I'll be there for an hour.
Oh, I'm sure that's not going to be a problem.
Have you
I would
heard
be willing to do an hour, but not much more than that, because I want to enjoy the event.
That's
That's why I'm not volunteering for the other ones, because they want it for 4 hours.
What's the other one?
Headquarters is asking for volunteers, and they want 4-hour shifts.
Oh.
Oh, ouch. Well, that's like half a dang event.
Yeah.
You have to pay me for that.
Well, and then
I'm
like,
sure-
and as Cliff pointed out, we're going to need volunteers for the APE, and we're going to need a lot of them. So, I think maybe we run our little booth by, board members and or members in general. And then that way, we don't tap our pool of volunteers, because we're going to definitely need them for the APE event. There's no way around that. And we're going to, hey, Cliff, do you have any idea of how many we will actually need? Do we have any idea on that?
I just pulled a number out of my behind, but I was guessing somewhere's up to around 200.
Yeah.
But that's for a huge, giant, full up, 7,000 people. It could be less than that, but we're going to need people everywhere from parking to concessions to, people that are going to go handle, where are we going to be, getting people to go to get on the bus, or if we're going to have people that are going to be at GCD, we're going to have people there. We're going to have security. We're going to have people that are just dealing with first aid, all kinds of stuff. So it's a lot bigger deal this round than would be normally.
So I think if we could try to limit what sort of volunteers we need over at our booth, then perfect. We're not tapping too heavily into, the pool of volunteers that we're definitely going to need for. I mean, and there's going to be people that are going to do both. They're going to want to do both, and by golly, we're going to let them do that if that's if they're that gung ho about volunteering.
And as far as I'm concerned, these 14 volunteers, if we're talking 2 people for an hour each, that's part of my 200, because this is really handing out registration packets to people who've pre-registered. So that's part of what this is part of the deal, right? I mean,
yeah.
So
okay, well, it sounds like we're pretty much unanimous on this. So I'll go ahead and connect with I'll just fill out this form here is what I got to do. I don't have to connect with Annie on this, just fill out the form, and I'll go ahead and do a let's see, I'll just do the 10 by 10. I don't know that we need anything much bigger than that.
Nope.
I mean, if we did a 10 by 20, you get 2 tables and 4 chairs. And it kind of goes up from there. So I'll go ahead and just get the 10 by 10. I think that's pretty good size. We won't bring our entire WSGA store. I don't, just the main items that seem to sell. We won't do. Yes, go ahead.
If you're going to also be handing out packages, like Cliff is saying, is 10 by 10 really going to be big enough to do both things?
Well, I think a lot of it's going to depend on, what our packages are. I mean, are we talking a ton of merch? I scale down whatever we need, from our store. I mean, a lot of that stuff is pretty small. We can get all of that in one tote pretty easily. We're talking coins and, small trackable tags. I mean, those things don't take up a ton of space. We will put a couple of shadow boxes out. People can see what we have for sale. I would say we probably don't bring any of the clothing items necessarily, because that takes up a lot more room. So we just go with the basics and really leave the rest of that booth for, whatever, we have for the ape packages, and have those registration packages up and ready to roll. And then, we'll always do a little membership thing too. So we'll bring some forms for people who want to sign up and be a member. Of course, we'll do that, but that doesn't take up much space.
Yeah, and I think we also don't have to make the decision right now. It's very much going to depend on the size of the whole thing, right? So if this COVID-19 calms down a little bit, but not enough to make this any bigger than 1,000 people that are going to come up to ape, well, then it's not going to be that big of a need. 1,000 or 10 by 10 is going to be fine. And if it's going to be 5,000 or 7,000 people that are going to show up, well, we're not going to be able to distribute everything there, but we are going to try and get as many of them out as we can, and we'll try end up with other registration area events that we're going to do, maybe a night before event, where we'll have something that the WSGA will host for some of our, the premium members that are, the people who are getting the all-in packages that, maybe we'll have a kind of a no-host party, but it's, that, hey, if you give $300 to get the all-in package for all kinds of stuff, then, we'll have a kind of a no-host dinner somewhere. So we'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
We don't know, we haven't put any of this stuff up for sale. We don't know how many people are going to buy what, but those are the sort of questions that we asked in the survey. And so we got a sense of kind of what people are thinking. But we didn't have any dollar numbers associated with it yet either. So we'll just see how it is when we get to that point. And we just, it's also fluid and up in the air because of COVID-19. It's really hard to say right now. So.
Yeah, that does make it a challenge. The uncertainty is there. I mean, if we didn't have that and we were like, yep, we're going beeline for this event's happening and we're planning full steam ahead, that's one thing. But yeah. And who knows? I mean, this all could be academic if HQ just pulls the plug on the 20th celebration, then this doesn't matter. We're done. So
and the $10 is not a worry. That's not a big thing.
That's nothing. We're going to do it. So I will go ahead and get that taken care of, and say, yep, we're there. And we'll just, if it goes, awesome. If it doesn't, well, hey, at least they knew we were interested and we wanted to do it. So anything else from anybody on the booth at the 20th anniversary?
I think we should do it.
Okay. I'm not going to so much vote on this. I don't know if we need to do that. I'm just going to, I'll just front the $10. It's not a big deal to me. And I think the exposure for us is so far beyond the $10. Having all those people picking up packages and seeing, a part of our store there on display, people wanting to buy WSGA stuff. I think that's perfect. We do it. It's so worth the cost, even if we end up losing it because the event's canceled. So the last little item I have on the agenda is the Valley Cities Geo Tour. I just wanted to let everybody know. Our name is attached to this tour. We aren't technically putting this on. Our name is attached to it. This is really Annette's baby, and she and I have worked together on really her doing most of the work, putting this up and getting it going. But she is going to do a renewal for the Valley Cities Tour for this year. It makes perfect sense, especially with the celebrations going on in August. So we're definitely going to do it. The funding has not been a problem from the cities that have put up funds for the first go round. She was talking with the Port of Seattle, who put up the lion's share of the monies for the first round. They were incredibly impressed with the response to the Geo Tour. We were able to, thanks to Gear Guru over there at HQ, Jeff was able to put up some really nice graphics and reports that she shared with the Port of Seattle to show just how many people came through that traveled here from afar and traveled via the airport and came to do the Geo Tour. They were pretty damn impressed with that, and so they're pretty stoked about going for a round 2 and putting up some more grant money for that. The cities, she hasn't reached out to them yet, but Auburn's going to be in. They've been in it every year. That's not going to be a problem. I think Renton will come along as well. They were sort of the last of the cities to give us some grant funds on that. Kent will come along as well. She still has connections over at the city of Kent. So we're going to go for a round 2 on this, and I think that's it after this. She has no intentions of going a third round, but I think it makes sense doing it again because, again, everybody's coming here in August, and hopefully, and having another Geo Tour in the immediate Puget Sound area that's been refreshened makes a bunch of sense. And so we're going to do it. So that means we'll probably need some more volunteers to put out some more caches. That's going to be coming down the road here. I'm not sure if she has a timetable. I'm sure she does for this. So just be on the lookout for that. And she's going to spearhead this one more time, which I think is great. Does anybody have any comments on that?
Bravo.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's nice that we can help front this because a lot of these, particularly the Port of Seattle, and since they are the biggest financier of this Geo Tour, they obviously the city of Auburn really knows, gotten to know Annette over the years with her coin challenges she was doing with them. So she had a really good rapport with them. And really, I think she was kind of working on Kent as well. But the Port of Seattle, they're leery of working with an individual and not necessarily somebody who has an organization behind them. And so that's really where we stepped in and, would be that, that backing to be that organization where the the Port of Seattle was comfortable with granting us the funds for the first go round, and we basically had them in our camp, and they were impressed with the numbers. So this is good. I mean, and potentially they could be a future source down the road too if we ever wanted to do another tour. They can see that geocachers will travel and use airport facilities. They like that. So that's all I really had on this. If there's nothing else on the tour, on the Geo Tour, I think at this point we need to see if there's any member comments. So Jim, over there in YouTube country, how are we looking? Is there any questions that have come out of the chat?
No, I actually posted a thing saying they're asking for questions and nobody's responded. I saw it get up to as high as 9 people watching. It's currently at 7.
Oh, that's cool.
That's not bad, guys. That's good. Keep it going.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, if we don't have anything from the gallery there on YouTube, then I think really we're about done. Our next meeting is going to be on May 20th, 6:30 as always. And so for our new members, now you know where to go. We'll reach out to you. Hopefully, we'll have the video component figured out here for YouTube. So we'll be the real meal deal. And that's all I have. Is there any comments from anybody on the board here? I'm going to open the floor up.
Who's our payroll guy, or who's our financial guy right now?
You mean who's going to handle the treasury? That's going to be our new treasurer is Annette. Miss Peach. Peach of Pete and Peach.
Peach and Pete, yeah.
She's going to be our treasurer. She's got experience already with another organization. So
no, I remember we went over it last time. I just blanked on it and thought it was Jess for a minute. So
no,
yeah,
no,
okay,
it's Annette.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Night.
Anyone else?
Nope.
All right, you guys. Listen, first of all, I want to thank all of you, especially our outgoing members, particularly, or meaning outgoing board members. I want to thank both Antoine and again Jim for both of you guys being on the board this past year and helping out, especially Jim, but Antoine as well. I mean, you guys really kind of stepped up. Antoine had filled a vacancy at short notice and was able to step up, and I appreciate that. And then Jim, you've been on the board for a couple of years handling secretary duties, and I appreciate that. Again, thanks to, of course, Annette, who's not here, Lori, as well as Chris of the Northwest. Thank you two for stepping up and volunteering. I greatly appreciate that. You guys get to help us kind of run this organization going forward. I appreciate that. And that's all I have. I think at this point we just need to adjourn if somebody wants to toss that out there.
So moved.
I'll make a motion.
All right.
Oh, gee, comment.
All right, all in favor.
For your information on
Hi.
the April.
Wait, I think Gene's saying something.
I'll be gone for the wedding.
Okay, say that again, Gene.
This is April 15th. I've got my youngest daughter's wedding, so I won't even be around at all.
Okay.
All right. Well, appreciate that. Well,
Congratulations on her wedding. I hope she has a marvelous wedding.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Great.
All right. All right. Well, I think we've all voted, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Again, thank you all for taking, I don't know how many hours this was.
Too
Should have been.
Hey, do you guys want to know the new profile name for my son's geocaching name?
I saw that.
What if